Hello, everyone. Welcome to our virtual event space. My name is Allie. You might recognize me from our Lake Forest Park location, and I'm your host for this evening. If you I'm so excited to be introducing Susan Mallery and Kristin Harmel here to discuss Susan's newest novel, The Boardwalk Bookshop, which came out just yesterday. So happy book birthday. But before we get into the good stuff, on behalf of all of us here at Third Place Books, I just want to quickly thank you all so much for tuning in. For those of you who may not know, we are an independent bookstore with 3 locations in the Seattle area. We are having more and more of our events in person lately, which is so exciting. But our online event program is sticking around to connect readers and authors in a virtual space. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and of course for buying books. Your support is what makes all of this possible. So if you haven't gotten your hands on any of the books that come up this evening and you would like to, I will be linking books in chat. For those of you in the Seattle area, come on in, grab a copy off the shelf, or you can place an order online and come pick them up in store. Or if you're not local or not leaving the house, we of course do ship. So go ahead and follow those links in chat to our website. Books will be signed if you order them by tonight. Which is very exciting. While you're over on our website, I definitely encourage you to check out some of our other upcoming events. We have an exciting roster coming up with the rest of the spring and into the summer. So if you'd like to stay in touch with our community, you can sign up for our newsletter. It's a weekly update about events and exciting releases, our online book clubs, and of course, follow us on any of the major social media platforms. We are at Third Place Books for the quickest updates and recommendations. So tonight we are here for about an hour, and towards the end we will be taking questions. So if you have any questions, which we very much hope that you do, go ahead and leave those in the Q&A box, which should be either at the top or bottom of your screen. It is different than the chat box, which I see everyone is discovered. I love this. Hello, everyone. I absolutely invite you to applaud virtually, connect with each other, share where you're tuning in from, all of that good stuff in the chat. But when it comes time for questions, do make sure those end up in the Q&A so we can most easily find them. While you're in our chat and question spaces, I do want to remind you to please lead with kindness and refrain from any inappropriate behavior or harassment. And then finally, before we introduce our authors, there will be a raffle tonight for some beautiful fashion illustrations by Holly Nichols of Bree, Mikki, and Ashley from the Boardwalk Bookshop. So I'm going to go ahead and put a link in chat right now for anyone who'd like to participate in the raffle. Just click on the link. It's going in right now. Go ahead and follow that link. And you're just going to enter your email address for a chance to win. So finally, should any technical issues arise, which does happen, you've all seen these by now, I'm sure, we will work as quickly as we can to resolve them, and we appreciate so much your patience and understanding. All right, so now it is time for all of us to settle in, because without further ado, I am so pleased to welcome Susan Mallery, #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than 150 novels about love, family, and friendship. Over 95 of her books have been USA Today bestsellers, and she sold 40 million copies of her books worldwide. Booklist says romance novels don't get much better than Mallery's expert blend of emotional nuance, humor, and superb storytelling, and we at Third Place Books totally agree. In conversation today, I'm so pleased to introduce Kristin Harmel, the New York Times bestselling author of more than a dozen novels, including The Forest of Vanishing Stars, The Book of Lost Names, The Winemaker's Wife, and The Sweetness of Forgetting. Her books have been translated into more than 30 languages, and she is also the co-founder and co-host of the popular and wonderful web series, Friends and Fiction. So the book this evening is The Boardwalk Bookshop, in which 3 women run a thriving business together. As their bond grows closer, they challenge one another to become the best versions of themselves. And then Kirkus said, and I just loved this because it was so perfect, it's a book begging to be read on the beach with the sun warming the sand and the salt in the air. It's pure escapism, which is like the perfect dream according to me. So thank you all so much for being here. Audience members, do not be shy in chat, which I see that you are not being. Perfect. Keep that up. If you need anything, I will be in chat keeping an eye on stuff, so don't be shy. And with that, I'm going to pass the stage to our authors. So welcome, both of you. The stage is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allie. And Susan, thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you. This is so much fun.
Oh, I appreciate you being here. We had such a good time when I was on. I'm trying to think, it was last year, right? I was on.
I think it was last year. Honestly, the last 2 years, everything has run together for me.
Was it Thursday last week? Yeah. No, everything is all one. It's all one timeline. It's all 1 week, basically.
Yes,
but yeah, it was great. And I appreciate you being here. And before I forget, I just want to say to those of you who have ordered from Third Place Books or choose to do so tonight, in addition to the signed book, you will also be getting a note card. And mine is like thin because I've had them for a while, so I'm using it. And I did not turn my computer, so it's not backwards. So I'm sorry about that. But the little notepads and also a stylus pen, those will come separately from my amazing assistant, Janelle. So who is here tonight, if you all want to say hi to her in the chat. I know she's here, and should I not be able to answer a question, I will then get a text and she will tell me, no, that wasn't the right title, was it? No, she's very sweet. So those of you who order from Third Place, because we love to support them, you'll be getting that in a separate link, just so you know.
And so they have to order by tonight, right? So order by the
order
end
by
of
tonight.
to
Cuts off tonight. Yes, we have a quantity thing, so it cuts off tonight. And the link is also, I believe, in the chat. So,
well, you know, it's great because they can get the notepad and the pen and the signed book, but then also know that they're supporting an independent bookstore, which is just so important. I mean, and we say it all the time on Friends in Fiction, but they're really the cornerstones of our literary community. So, and Third Place Books is a great one to support. So, yay! All good things tonight. Well, Susan, this is so great. I have a whole list of questions. I finished the Boardwalk Bookshop earlier this week. I'm so excited that people are getting to read it for the first time. I know it just came out yesterday, but I know there are a lot of people tonight who might not have read it yet, who might be waiting for their signed copy from Third Place Books. Can you tell us about the Boardwalk Bookshop?
Well, I just like to say I'm really excited the book is finally out, because I write, as I'm sure you do, my books are turned in a year in advance, and sometimes they're turned in early. So I can wait a year for a book to come out. And sometimes I don't care. And sometimes I'm like, I love this book so much. I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but this is one of my favorites. And so it's been very difficult to not have it out. And so I'm really thrilled that it is. It's a story of friendship between women. It's 3 women who, there's this great space on the beach in Los Angeles, and I tend to alternate between LA and the Seattle area in my writing. So this was an LA book. And so they are each interested. One owns a book, Bree owns a bookshop, Mikki owns a gift store, and Ashley owns Muffins to the Max. And so they go to look at this place for lease. It's too big for all of them, and it's too expensive. But if the 3 of them lease it together, then it's perfect. So the story opens about, I'd say, close to 6 months. They've been doing this. They've moved in, they lease it together, and it's been about 6 months. So they're friends, but they're still learning about each other. Yeah. And that's sort of what the book to me is, sort of a love story about friendship, how they're friends, and then they become friends who are family by the end of the book. And I just think it's a beautiful journey. And along the way, it's emotional. It's incredibly funny. When I write the book, a lot of times I'll laugh. If I'm not laughing, you're not laughing, sort of thing. If I'm not squirming, you're not squirming. So I do go through all the emotions, but usually the second time I'm reading it, or the 400th time, I'm like, yeah, well, it's funny. Can we move on to the edit? But I was actually laughing like the 4th and 5th time I went through the book. So that makes me really happy. There's some things I love. And all I'm going to say is I've never had an Earl in a book before, and that was so much fun. I love Earl. I love everything about him, start to finish. He's there at the beginning, and he is there at the end. So I love that. I love. I think the men are interesting, and I think they have very interesting journeys. And what's funny is each of them has a love story, which is not at all how I thought of the book when I was plotting it. It was about the friendship. And then about 3/4 of the way through the book, I thought, oh, interesting. They each have a love story. I wonder if anyone's going to notice because it's supposed to be the women's fiction here. So anyway, it's a long way of saying it's a book about friends and friends who become family. And I had the best time writing it. And I hope you guys have the best time reading it.
Oh, I know everybody will. It was a really enjoyable book. I loved it. So, as you mentioned, these three women are kind of at the core of the story, as is their friendship. It really is. You're completely right. It's a story about friendship. And it's interesting that you said that about the love stories, because to me, I think it was the friendship that enabled those love stories. Like they had to become better, stronger versions of themselves before they were ready for these stories they were going to embark upon. And I liked how friendship did that for them, because I think that's very true to life. But I wanted to ask you, so the book features three characters at different stages of their lives, which makes their friendship perhaps a little bit of an unlikely one. Was that deliberate as a way to connect with maybe a wider number of readers, or to talk about, a broader range of issues? Or was it something that kind of evolved naturally once these characters began speaking to you?
It was more organic than planned. I had Bree's character. She was the one I came to
Ooh, okay.
first. I'm sure this happens to you when you go to write a book. There's usually one character who leads you into the story. And I knew Bree's issues. And I'm going to just see if I can turn my lights down because it's getting dark here on the East Coast. And I don't want to frighten you and make you think I'm turning into a fairy. All right. Can you go down a little? I'll try here. Okay, let's see. That should be like, there we go. That should help a little bit. Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
I can't pull away because I'm tethered.
No, I'm the same. Same, yes.
As far back as I can go before you're going to hear a squealing noise and it'll go badly. So Bree was really my anchor character. And so I knew what I wanted to do with her. And she was interesting because she just got more damaged as the book went on. I mean, when I first had the idea, I knew the trauma. She's a widow, and there's some complications with her late husband. And so, but the more I got to know her, the more I realized, whoa, this is not the wound I thought it was. This is like 10 times deeper wound. And then the next character I knew was Ashley. Okay. And her storyline, and it's on the back cover copy, so there's no spoiler here, saying basically they're in love. He adores her. I mean, Seth adores her. And he, suddenly she finds out he doesn't want to get married. He doesn't believe in marriage. He thinks if you get married, you settle and people stop trying. And he wants them to try every day. And she just thinks that's an exhausting way to live. And I've wanted to explore this kind of character for a while, simply because there really is a thing. And a lot of women, I would say most women have it. You plan to get married and it's important. And it all makes sense sociologically until the man who says, I'm not interested in marriage says, why is it so important? And then you're just left sputtering. Because I was trying to, I don't want to disappoint anyone, but sometimes I'm the one putting the words in them. So I'm trying to articulate a really great argument, and I'm having trouble with it because it's, I could do the thing about the economy and societies are better and a two-parent family and da, 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 da. And what the stability brings, and economically, although in this day and age, for some women, and for Ashley would be one of them, the economics are not a serious issue for her. And she has quite the support system, but it's real. And so that one was actually the hardest storyline because I kept not being able to get my ducks in a row with her. Just because I'm like, surely somewhere online, I read dozens of articles on this and all of that. So that's what Ashley was. And then Mikki was just your basic, I just think I usually do a funny storyline, and she was the funny one. Okay, I'm going to move some stuff and move this light back.
So it's interesting you say that, because, okay, for me, Mikki was the one I connected with the most. And I think maybe it was because she didn't think she was in the midst of any kind of a serious problem or a serious life-changing issue, but she was in a way that she was in the way that you are when you've spent your entire life taking care of other people and you forget that you have needs too. Although I guess Earl is her needs, but but can you talk? Okay, so Bree was who you started with, and it was Bree's story that kicked things off. As you were writing and getting to know these characters, did you find yourself still closest to Bree throughout the writing of the book, or did your connection to the characters change as you
I
got
feel
deeper
by
into
the time I'm writing the story, I know everybody and I'm really connected to them. Mikki was the most fun to write.
Yeah.
And I think there's always an energy in the character who's the easiest to write. I've read a lot of stories about 2 or 3 women. And so the one that's easiest to write is just, all her scenes were hysterical almost. And, I was trying to explain to my agent, there's a line in the 3 of them, every Friday they go have champagne together, and Ashley and Bree are kind of getting into it, and Mikki's just like pear toast. And I laughed and laughed, and Annalise is like, yeah, I'm sure that'll be funny in context. It has no meaning now. I think Mikki was the 3rd character to come, but that doesn't mean she didn't have a great storyline. And once I figured out what her storyline was, I can sort of see how that would happen, but I love her combination of competency and naivete. And she's just, and there's a great line later when Mikki is dealing with her problem and Ashley's like, oh, poor you for all your, you're so many good things are happening to you. How sad is that? How tragic. So, I thought I can see why you would relate to her. She is the most relatable of the 3. She's a mom with kids, and she's the nurturer. She's the one who does take care of everything. She's just natural. If there's somewhere there's a pile of towels, she's going to start folding them, as we all would before you even know what's happening. It's like that, the thing about, did you accidentally cut up your husband's boss's meat because you were thinking while you were talking. So it's that, she's that kind of person. And so, yeah, I love her. She's great. And I think everybody, a lot of times bad things happen and people have to apologize. Mikki has the best apology I've ever done, ever in my entire writing career. She is like the world's greatest apology. And I was like, wow, that was a good apology.
I second that.
Yeah, it's like, I wish I was that smooth in my life.
Yeah, it actually, yes, it is a fantastic apology. I completely agree. Okay, so you mentioned friendship. So there is heat in this book. There's heat, there's romance, there's all that, but there's some friendship in there. There are also some serious issues about overcoming trauma, both physical and emotional. So I wanted to specifically talk about friendship, though, because I think it's not just at the heart of this book, but at the heart of many of your books. So why is writing about friendship with other women, and not just writing about romantic relationships, so important to you? I think that's something that really defines a lot of your novels.
Well, I think the friendship in women's lives are defining for us as individuals. I think it's, if we have a partner, the partner is great, but people, oh, my partner's my best friend. It's like, okay, but when you have to complain about said partner, you need somewhere to go that's not the partner, unless your partner is much better dealing with that than my partner is. So I think that friendships are significant. I think women, we want to create a village. We do want to have connections with people. We're more comfortable. We feel safer. I think there's a biological element to friendship. Now Amazon delivers everything, but back in the day, we needed each other to survive and for our children to survive. So I think it's more than just we want it. I think we do need it on a biological level. We need the connection. We need to be heard and understood. And I think the relationships women have are so sustaining and such an enhancement to our lives. So writing about that, when they go right and when they go wrong. And I know that there are people who have fights with their friends, but I feel like as an adult, I've really steered clear of that. But that doesn't mean the friendships don't have rough patches. So sometimes dealing with that, I think, can be interesting. And the kind of books I write, it's rarely it's really about frenemies, or I don't write revenge books or that sort of thing. Usually the friendship is the supportive element in the journey that the heroines are taking. And in this case, it was very much that. So I don't know. It is just something I think is so important. That I find really interesting. So I definitely enjoy writing about it. And I love creating these women. I mean, I would have any of them, come stay the weekend at my house. Bree would scare me a little bit, but she would make me a little nervous, but that's okay.
I would happily join them for their weekly champagne
hour. Oh yeah, the weekly champagne. And that was fun because I'm a big wine drinker, but I don't drink champagne. So I had to do, and this was actual research. I did not get a lot of these bottles and open them. So I'm online reading reviews.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, to try and
I assumed you were a big champagne drinker.
I am not a big champagne drinker at all. So I bought some great bottles of wine, and my husband doesn't like champagne either. So I had these great bottles. It's like, so we're just going to wait for friends to have great things happen in their lives and then give it away, which is what we've been doing. So I bought a bunch, and it's like, we don't really drink this. And I make a cocktail with champagne, but I use like a quarter cup. So I'm not opening some fancy champagne. I'm going to go get the little cheap $5 bottle of Prosecco and pretend it's champagne and pour it on my cocktail. So I've been giving away some champagne here. So.
Oh man, well I'll get in line for that. That sounds good. Sure. I will tell you that is smart that you have not fallen down that rabbit hole, because my 2019 book was set in Champagne, France.
Oh my.
And so I was not much of a champagne drinker before I began researching that book, but going and spending time in Champagne and then feeling like I needed to understand more about the champagne making process turned me into a champagne snob. So, I mean, it's like our house drink. It's terrible. It's a very expensive habit. It's awful.
Well, we do wine, and I do a lot of that. So yes, I've written a couple books set in wineries, and that one I'm all in for the tasting. Yeah. If you were to walk out into the living room, it's like, how many wine, because we've got the little wine cellars that are built in, and then the wine rack.
I love it.
And then because we just moved recently, and it's like, that one's not big enough. I ordered another one. So, and then there's the discussion with the wines, who's good enough to go into the wine cooler and who has to be outside in ambient temperature. It's like, but I thought you loved me best. It's like, no, I'm sorry. You are just a cheap everyday wine and you have to be outside.
Well, now, Susan, I know what we are going to do when we get together in person.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm a big wine drinker too, and I just see this whole future spreading out before the two of us.
I think it's going to work. I think it's going to be happy.
All right. So just going back briefly to friendship, without giving too much away, because I know a lot of people have not read the book yet. In my opinion, the friendship changes the trajectory of each of these three women's lives. Can you talk a little bit about how you think the friendship affects each of them? What are they drawing from that friendship that enables them to take that next step forward without giving us any spoilers?
Well, I think the friendship makes them strong. And it makes them strong in a different way. It makes Mikki strong enough to go after what she says she wants. And then in her time of need, when it all goes awry, as it will, it gives her a place. For each of them, it all goes awry, and they all have a place to go. Although Bree, being Bree, goes there most reluctantly. Ashley is, what it does for Ashley is it is both sides of the argument of, do you want to get married or not? Mikki, of course, is very traditional and wants, is very supportive of that. I believe, and this is not a spoiler, when she tells them what she's found out about Seth, I believe the first thing Mikki says is, well, you need to dump his ass. Yeah. So her position is incredibly clear, whereas Bree argues the other side. And so she does get both points of view. I think what Bree gets is, it finally gets her to the place where she can admit she has a heart, which she does not want to admit. I think, we joke in romance, the love of a good woman changes a man. I think the love of good friends helps her heal. I think the friendship, to me, Bree has the biggest journey. I think she emotionally takes this incredible where she starts, she's so damaged.
Yeah.
And that was so fascinating to discover as I was writing her. It's like, oh, this is so
Yeah.
much worse than I thought. She is the most damaged character I've written, and it goes on this amazing journey. But what happens at the end is she's not fixed. I mean, Bree is
Yeah.
always going to be Bree, but these women and their love and support is so, it allows her to heal as much as she's going to in that space and time. I think she'll get better over time, but
Yeah.
I think the support, the love of a good friend really allows her to trust herself and her feelings and see possibilities.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, speaking about Bree and her damage, three of the people really responsible for damaging her are authors. Her,
I love that.
I love that too. I was fascinated that that was your choice. Authors writing about authors is always such an interesting concept to me, but you were really writing these author characters who did some significant damage, partially because of the job they'd chosen and what they invested in it. And then you also have this other author who enters into her life, Harding, who we'll talk about in a moment.
I don't believe this is a spoiler because it's in chapter 1. Bree owns a bookstore. She loves books, all books, thin books, children's books, mysteries, cookbooks, self-help, everything but literary, but she hates authors. She hates them. They are a necessary evil and they annoy her. So, which is a really interesting place for a bookseller to be. And, she gets teased about it, but she's got a very successful independent bookstore. But authors are just something you have to deal with. It's like you go to a picnic, you're probably going to have to deal with some ants. But if you love the picnic, you have to put up with it. That's sort of how she sees authors. And it's true. Yes, there are, well, I'll just say her parents are authors, and they were interesting. And I plot with another writer, Kristin Harmel, and we met when we were brainstorming this book. She's the one who came up with parents. And it's based on a famous writing pair that I've never heard of, but she did a full 10 minutes with great passion on their life and all of this. It's like, wow, this has tremendous energy. So yes, her parents are these authors. So, and then the challenge is naming them anyway, but that's a whole different discussion. So yes, so that's where that idea came from. And I thought it was brilliant. So it really anchored her in who and what she is. But yeah, I love that she hates authors. I love it. I mean, as an author, I found it charming, which is interesting.
Was that strange for you writing about our profession that way with these characters?
No, because I've heard things, we used to go on tour, and so back in the day, and they still consider me incapable of traveling alone. So if I went today, I say we have escorts, and they're not what you're thinking. They're usually much, much older. They're retired. They're always lovely. Sometimes their driving is scary. They pick you up. They take you to your hotel. They pick you up. They may or may not, depending on your schedule, you might get food, you might not. And they take you from the event back to your hotel, and then they take you to the airport. And most of them will tell you great stories about other writers. Sometimes they say the name, sometimes they don't. There's a lot of drunk men out there who write. I'm just going to say it. Anyway, so a little bit of what she complained about was stories I heard from my escort. So, yeah.
That is very interesting. And yes, I've heard a lot of those stories too. It's probably good that Allie's off screen because she's probably behind the scenes, like nodding, in recognition.
Some of them are so hideous. So yes, it's so, and I think it's fun because as a writer, I like poking fun at myself. So that was good. So yeah, that was one of my favorites is Bree loves books, hates writers.
I love it. That's hilarious. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit about your process. And what was interesting, what you said a moment ago about how you plot with another writer. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So I generally the way a book works is I get an idea. I get, like I would have gotten Bree, and then I just sort of sit with it. Not every idea is book worthy, as you know. So I wait and see if I still like it, if I want to go back to it and keep adding to it. And so once I know it's probably going to be a book, I brainstorm with Janelle, my assistant,
Okay.
I send her a bunch of stuff. She sends me back track changes.
That's awesome.
And Janelle's great because I'll say, you know, she needs a career and she'll send me back 6. And it'll be everything from show jumper to she runs a daycare. And so I may use one, I may use this. So we go back and forth, and then it reaches a point where I'm like, I really want to do this. Okay. So then I'll usually write a couple paragraphs to send to my agent and editor, simply because I need to know if the other authors in my house have just written this book, which happens. Sometimes ideas go into the zeitgeist.
Yep.
Does everyone remember Nora Roberts' wedding planning series? I can tell you dozens and dozens of wedding planner books were not written for 2 years while that came out. So that's a consideration. And then from there, I meet with Chris a couple times a year. And so we brainstorm each other's books. So it's an organized process where we spend 2 or 3 hours. I send her material, she sends me material, we study the material, we make notes, and then we record the sessions. We used to do tape recorders with actual cassettes. But now it's all digital, and we record the sessions, and we have a goal that in this case, it's 3 women. So it's actually 3 individual stories. So for every story, we use plot points from screenwriting as a 3-act structure. Okay. So the first turning point, the midpoint, the third turning point, what the conflict is, what the journey is going to be, and then ideas about, you know, if you have some scene ideas, that's always helpful, because a book like this is about 75 scenes. So a handful of ideas is always helpful. And then we do that for me. We do that twice more. We'll do it for all 3 characters. Everybody has their own storyline. Everybody's story is completely beginning, middle, end, all 3 plot points. So one of the reasons the books read quickly is you're going from first turning point to first turning point to first turning point. And then, so you're always moving in everybody's story. And then I go home and I transcribe the tape, which takes, well, it's not tape, it used to be tape. I transcribe their recording, which usually takes like 2 days, even though it's only 3 hours, because I have to stop and type and stop and type. And we'll go down these tangents. And of course, it's like seeing a movie a second time. I've already done this. And I know, why do we have to spend 10 minutes talking about this when I'm not going to use it? So I have to sit through that. And then I type up my notes. And from there, I write a synopsis, which is a brief outline of what the story is going to be, except for me, they're like 25 or 30 pages. So not brief. And then I send that off for approval.
Oh, okay.
And then it sits until it's time to be written, because I'm writing something else then. So when the time comes and I go to start the book, I pull out everything I have. I read it all. If there is a God, I have an opening line, because I try not to have writer quirks, but if I don't have an opening line, I can't do anything.
Oh, wow.
So no, I need the opening line. I have to have it. So I really try to have it when I'm writing the synopsis, so that when I go to write the book, it's not a big deal. Otherwise, there's much pacing and cursing. So then I start, and when I write these books, I wrote them. Bree was first, Mikki was second, Ashley was third. So I wrote Bree's opening scene and Bree's point of view. I write until I hear her voice in my head, and then it's like, okay, I know who she is. Sometimes I know them. Sometimes I have to do character charts and the hero's journey. It just depends on the character. Then once I hear her voice, which should happen in the first scene, I plot out her story. I know what percentage of the book she's going to be. So I know about how many scenes, and I just plot her entire story. Then it takes about a week. Then I do the same with Mikki, and I get her entire story. And then I do Ashley and her entire story. And my plotting is single spaced. It is scene by scene, chapter by chapter. I don't do it in order, but at the end, it's scene by scene, chapter by chapter. And a book is about 110 pages, 110,000 words.
Okay.
And my plotting is going to be between 15 and 20,000 words. So it's actually a tiny, it's a first draft.
So is mine. I write my outlines are between 20 and 25. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a first draft,
crazy.
Which makes the writing go quickly, because because in the book I'm currently working on, I had a big problem, and I'm like, oh, thank God I'm doing this. I'm not on page 300.
Yeah.
I'm 6,000 words in. It's still annoying. I'm not saying it's not annoying, because it is, but it's really easy to go back and make the changes in the plotting form. So, and then once I've got the book plotted, then I just go back, and then I've got to organize them
Right.
that the scenes go in order, because they need to have the sex before they get the pregnant. So I number them so that when I'm weaving them together, Ashley 7 has to come before Ashley 8. And as it gets mixed, around and around,
Yeah.
sometimes it comes together and I do it in like 2 hours. Sometimes it takes me 3 days to get the book in the correct order. And I have to
Wow.
fill in with, there needs to be transition scenes, or I will end up with 2 scenes that aren't connected, but obviously should be. So I've got to change it so that
Okay.
these really are together. Or a scene I thought was in Mikki's point of view is actually going to be in Bree's point of view. So I have to make that change. So all the information still has to come out. It's
Yep.
just going to be observed rather than felt. So I do all that and then I write. And once the writing starts, it's just the work. It's putting in the work. And fortunately for me, the writing is the part I like the best. It's my
that's
favorite. It's the
awesome.
writing.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. I don't think I've ever talked to someone who plots exactly like you do. That's very, your process is very interesting. So Allie mentioned earlier the wonderful Kirkus review of the Boardwalk Bookshop, which called the book Pure Escapism. I'm wondering, is that how you visualize your books, as an escape for your readers?
I do. I have a reader in mind. Years and years ago, when I was writing category romance, I got back in the day, it was actually mail in the mailbox. I had a P.O. box, and I got this letter from this woman who said, I just read, it was a book called The Bodyguard, Miss Jones. And she said she and her husband and their 3 little kids were moving across country. The movers were late. They had gotten into the house. There was no furniture. The kids were missing their toys. They were going to camp on the floor. And she said after the cross-country drive with these little kids and finding out there was no furniture, she was on the verge of losing it. And her husband said, go take a bath. I'm taking the kids to the store. I'll bring back dinner. And he brought back the book. He just grabbed a book and it happened to be mine. And she's like, this is exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And so I've always thought about that. And so I do think about my reader. And one of the weird things about writing is we don't know our readers. We don't know where they are. We can't control what's happening in their day, where they're reading the book. Are they commuting home and listening? Are they in a hospital room with a dying family member? Are they going through a breakup? Are they really happy? Are they almost in labor? And our job is to make them feel what we want them to feel when we want them to feel it, with no control over the circumstances. So when you think about it, it's really silliness, but we aspire. And so I think about that. And I don't write deep intellectual novels. They're not existential. I promise my readers they will be satisfied at the end. And by that, I don't mean, and then everyone dies kind of sad. I mean, really, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
And if occasionally it's more like, oh, I hate her. So I'm glad she's going to suffer. That can be its own joy. Although I don't do villains very often, but I did in the Vineyard at Painted Moon. There's a bad character. And at the end, she's alone. It's like, yes. And I hope you die. So I that's what I want to do. That's what I like to read. I don't like, do not send me all the way through a book and then have the horrible ending. Don't. I need the whisper of hope. So I want to write those. So escapism makes me happy. Take me to the beach. Ooh, take me to the beach too, but take the book to the beach. And yeah, that brings me joy. If I've made a reader laugh, if I've made her forget whatever's going on, if I've made that hospital stay a little bit more joyous, then I'm thrilled. That's my job. And I am delighted.
Well, I love that this is the kind of book you can take to the beach, but it's also the kind of book that can take the beach to you, or the escape to you, or whatever you need. I mean, that's to me the beauty of books. Wherever you are, the books can kind of transport you. And yeah, that's exactly the kind of book you write. It's wonderful. I know Allie's going to come back on in just a second to ask some questions from the audience. So if you have a question for Susan, if you haven't gotten it in yet, you've got about 1 more minute to type that in the Q&A section. Just a quick reminder that if you have not ordered Susan's book yet, you can get it tonight from Third Place Books. Susan will be dropping by to sign the book, so you can get a freshly autographed copy. The actual book itself will be autographed, right? And And it'll come with separately mailed the notepad that she showed you earlier, as well as a pen. So free gifts, supporting third place books, and getting your own autographed copy of this brand new, beautiful, wonderful book that we've been talking about that I enjoyed so much. And again, just remember, it's always helpful to support these independent booksellers.
Oh, it is.
Put on events like this. I mean, you know, this is taking their time, their energy, their resources, and all of us who are here tonight are here because they're hosting us. So it's a great way to say thank you, and also to get a fabulous book in the process. So one more question, and this is going to be kind of a specific one, but I mentioned earlier I wanted to ask about it. I don't think it's a spoiler to mention that Bree and Harding, who's Ashley's brother, have some sparks. We see that pretty early on. But we also see early on that Ashley, who's Harding's sister, initially tells Bree to stay away from Harding because she's afraid that Bree will hurt him. So since this is a book about love and friendship, can you talk a little bit about setting up that particular complication? I thought that was really well done and a really interesting twist and way to explore the different territory we tread in friendships and relationships.
Well, Bree is, she is very determined never to be in a relationship, but she enjoys men and sex. And then when she's done, she's done. And she's very clear and says, I'm willing to invest in a night. I might invest in 2 nights, but that's all there is. And Bree, that's who, and I love her because that's so not me. Third date. It's like, did you want to get married? So I love her for that. But Ashley's afraid. Her brother is actually very soft-hearted, and you know, he's a hunky guy with a great story, but he's gonna fall for her. Everybody falls for Bree. She's the woman every man wants, and a significant number of women. So she just, Ashley can see what's going to happen. And I love that because there's nothing but trouble to tell a woman, don't date my brother. Yep. And then your brother finds out. So even if he wasn't interested, now he has to date her. Yep. Because you, his little sister, told him not to. Yes. I mean, she just handled it badly from start to finish. And it actually, it's very delightful. I think it gives a lot of humor, and it allows us to see how much Ashley really, in some ways, it gives us a very big insight into Bree, but also what Ashley, how she admires and fears Bree, which I think is appropriate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All right, Allie, do you feel like coming back on to ask Susan some questions from the audience?
Hello, I'm back. So we have, this has been such a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for being here. Audience members, now is the time. If you have questions, throw them in the Q&A. We're going to get to as many as we can. There are a lot. So I'm so sorry if we don't get to you. I'm so sorry. But let's start with this question because I see it coming up a number of times. From Glenna and Patricia. And if I say your name wrong, infinite apologies. But many people are wondering, is this a standalone book or will these characters reappear?
It's a standalone.
Mm-hmm. So fun. Okay, so let's see. I absolutely love this question. But Jay Dixon asked, what do you love about writing and what do you hate?
I hate editing. I love the great idea. I love getting an idea and just there's a knowing. Sometimes it's like maybe and it requires work, but sometimes it's just like, oh my God, the world's greatest idea. And it's never really the world's, but in that moment, it feels like the world's greatest idea. So that's magical. But I meant what I said before. For me, the writing is the part that I enjoy most. It's like there's scenes I want to get and I write in order. So it's like you got to put in the work to get to the scene I want to write. And so I like the writing a lot. I just, oh God, I hate the editing. And I'm not keen on the research. I could never have done your book. I couldn't. No. I would have like halfway, not even an eighth of the way through been like, this was dumb. I'm going to go write a romance and not do any research. So I don't enjoy that. I don't like revising. I have friends who live to find the perfect world. It's like, nobody cares about the word. Just tell a great story and move on to the next book. That's where the joy is. So everybody's different. So yeah, the writing. And when I get a good idea, it's like, oh, It's such a joy. It's a thrill.
What about you, Kristin?
You know what part I struggle with is the copy editing process, because it
Yeah.
points out every little thing that you've done wrong, and you're like, yes, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and you just feel like an idiot. So that's always difficult for me, because I always think like, I've been doing this for so many years, I'm going to get better at it, and I never do. There's still as many missing commas and words. I use the word softly like 300 times in every manuscript. Everyone's speaking softly to each other.
Or they discover your timeline is completely messed up.
Oh,
and it's
completely.
Like,
Exactly. And I am torn between whether I like the plotting prior to the writing, like that 25,000 word outline, or whether I like the writing itself. And I think it's the plotting. I think I really like having those characters come alive for me as concepts, and kind of seeing where they take me.
So interesting. So, Joanne, Joanne is asking, Susan, when do you decide a book is going to be a standalone or the start of the series?
I've written a lot of series, and I am kind of taking a little break from the series. I wrote Fool's Gold, it was supposed to be 3 books. It ended up being like 25. So the Girls of the Mischief Bay books are very loosely linked, and the Blackberry Islands are very loosely linked. So I would do something like that again, no problem. But the odds of me doing something like Fool's Gold or even Happily Inc. are very slim, just because I love them. But after a while, I just want to be somewhere else. So my plan is to mostly do standalones. Having said that, I wrote a book called Sisters by Choice, and one of the point of view characters was a 19-year-old named Heather. And I just, her book, so it's a follow-up book, is coming out next year. So I think, and I'm sure it has a title, and I'm going to get a text in like 10 seconds telling me what we called Heather's book. Oh, I don't know if she has. No, Heather does not have a title yet, because I haven't turned it in yet. I have notes from Janelle to do, and then I'll turn it in. That's why it doesn't. But that's a follow-up. Oh, and here's the text, which says no title. So yeah, that's because my editor hasn't read it, and she's on maternity leave, so I know she's not here. I can say that.
Oh my gosh, I love this insider information.
I know, I totally forgot. No, it's sitting in a box for me to do her notes. I believe I do it the first week of July. It's on my calendar.
Funny.
So Susan and Kristin, this is from an anonymous attendee. This story has a friend group that us old-fashioned folks might call a motley crew. Do either of you have real life motley crews?
That's a great question.
Go ahead.
No, go. You go first.
No, my friends are all like normal. I mean, maybe to the outside world, they don't seem that way, but I think we're all incredibly normal. So,
that is so interesting, because it was not until that moment. One of the things that appealed to me, Susan, so much about this book is that the 3 women come from such different backgrounds, they're different ages, they're different walks of life, different interests, and yet they still come together. And I know a lot of people here tonight are people who tune in and see us on Friends in Fiction. They're members of Friends in Fiction, which of course you've been on, Susan. And, we like to say the 4 of us who run Friends in Fiction are from 4 different decades. We're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. We all live in different places. We all come from different backgrounds. We write different kinds of books. I don't know that I would call us a motley crew, but maybe I was seeing a little bit of us in the Boardwalk Bookshop. And that's just
I would love that. That would make me so happy.
So Anissa, I'm so sorry. Is asking, do your characters lead you, or do you lead them? Is it different in different parts of the writing process?
Mine definitely. Once they're real, then once I hear the voice, I mean, I joke about it, but there's been times I've gone out after writing and saying, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. And my husband's like, it's you. It's like, how could you be surprised? It's like, no, once they're real, you set them free and they do stupid things. It's like later you get to say, I told you that was a stupid thing and you insisted on doing it. Don't come crying to me. You're the one who chose this path. I'm just here to take it. So no, they definitely go forth and do things. And I'm like, really? You're going to regret that.
Yeah, That's interesting. We were talking about how we plot ahead of time. I would say that the majority of the differences between that original outline and the final book have to do with the characters speaking to me in different ways. So yeah, they absolutely drive the story. Yeah, we sound like insane people, Susan, but I can embrace that. I'm a crazy
I
person.
know, it's like things happen and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe we did that.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, it can be shocking.
So let's see. This is sort of somewhat related, but Barbara asks, Susan, do you ever find yourself talking out loud to your characters?
I must be the world's most annoying person because I talk when I write, but not like, I won't say the whole sentence. I'll just say like 3 words or mostly dialogue, but I'll start and stop. So when my husband's home when I'm working, he like has a sound machine, he has music, because I will just be like, okay, no. And then I type really fast. So it's just constant. The pets just sleep through it. They don't care. But yeah, I do. I don't talk back to them, like we don't have arguments because it's their journey. I'm not arguing. I'm just there. But yes, I do talk out loud and not in full sentences. So I try to do a we work thing and it's like, well, I can't be in the public space. So go in an office, shut the door. So yeah, I was disturbing my neighbors basically.
Oh, that's funny.
What about you, Kristin? Do you talk to your characters?
I don't talk to my characters, but I say out loud the words that I'm writing without realizing it sometimes. Like I kind of whisper them, like I'll be saying like, well, I'm reading the chat right now. So I'm just reading Michelle Marcus's words. I'll be saying like, oh, thought it was you. Oh, okay. So anyone who walks in on me thinks I'm crazy. And like, I think the more I've gotten used to doing that, I think that's just the theme of tonight. I think Kristin is crazy, but the more I've gotten used to doing that in novel writing, the more I think it carries over to other areas of my life. Like I've caught myself texting that way, like reading text as I'm texting them in public. Yeah, I'm a mess. I'm a disaster.
Relatable. So let's see. Susan is wondering, this is a great question. When writing a book, do you have somebody helping you with the plot, people, etc.? What does the support system look like when you're in drafting?
Once I'm done with plotting, because Chanel and I we may go back and forth. The thing I do that I'm sure drives her crazy is when I've done plotting, we have a phone call and I basically read it to her. It's 30,000 words. It's like 3 hours. I read it to her and we go through and I break notes and then she keeps notes. And when I'm done, she's like, this part didn't make sense or this was this, because it is almost like a tiny version of the book. Once that happens, I'm out. Nobody deals with, my poor husband has to hear, this happened. And it's people he's never met and I'm intimately involved and it doesn't make any sense at all, but he's really good at saying, that's great, sweetie, here's some more wine. No, once I start writing, I'm usually done. I will send the first scene that I write to Chanel, and then nobody sees it. And it's not like a secret, it's just, nobody sees it. What about you, Kristin?
My support system looks a whole lot like Mary Kay Andrews, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Patty
Callahan
Henry. They're the 3 women I host, the 3 other authors I host Friends in Fiction with. And yes, you all see us every Wednesday night at 7 Eastern on Facebook and YouTube, but you do not see the thousands of text messages we exchange all day, every day. And it's every little thought that pops into our heads about what we're writing, about what we're thinking, about, what we're reading. And it has, this group, the 4 of us, has existed for just over 2 years now, and it has completely changed the way I write because I never had people to bounce things off of to that extent before. I would talk things through with my editor. I would talk things through with other author friends, but this is a different, we talk about our books with each other every single day. And I've never had that before. So that's been an incredible, wonderful change for me.
Love that. So Sharon is asking, Susan, you talked about how important opening lines are. Do you ever change your opening lines, or are they set in stone from the get-go?
They're almost always set in stone.
Oh.
I won't say I've never changed one, but I mostly don't. And I try to have it something, you know, funny or unexpected, or it's, you know, you used to have like 8 pages to sell a book. Now you've got a tweet to sell a book. So if somebody's just reading the opening, if you're lucky, you have to the bottom of the first page. So that is really important, and it's so much pressure. I tell you. So yeah, the opening line has to be right. It will occasionally change, but mostly not.
That is fascinating because
Yeah, wow.
I don't think I ever have had an opening line survive. Because I have a tendency to write prologues, because that's how I need to get into it. Like, I need the prologue, and that's what kind of warms me up. And I think it's happened with at least the last 4 books. I turn it in and my editor's like, nope. I'm like, but please,
oh wow, no,
the prologue makes the book. Yeah, she's like, nope.
This is where the book starts, honey. Now here on page 22.
Yeah. And she's, you know what? And I fight for it every time, and she's always right. So like, I just need those 20 warm-up pages.
Oh, that's funny. No, yeah. I almost always, yeah. And in this one, I really had a tough time with the opening with Bree. So finally, it just came to me, you know, I thought there'd be more sex. It's like, okay, I can run with that. I can do that.
Yes, that's a great opening line.
All right, so we're getting to the end of our time, so we're just going to ask a couple of more questions. This is semi-related to the last one. It's from Debbie, and it says, was there a change in the title from draft to final? If so, what were they? If not, how are you able to hold on to it?
Was this your original title?
For me, no, it was not. My original title for The Forest of Vanishing Stars was The Dove of the Dark Forest, which completely makes sense, but which the publisher completely correctly said it sounded like a young adult fantasy novel, which it did, but that was my working title in my head.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
My original title was Trade 2022. That's how I do it. Hardcover 2022. Christmas book 2022. Every now and then I know the title, but almost never. And I think I did come up with this title. I did. I came up with my titles. No, last year I came up with all of them. Oh, we have another note from Janelle. Oh yeah, my original title was Bookstore on the Beach, and they said yep, and then they forgot, and another author got that, and so we had to come up with Boardwalk Bookshop. That's what happened.
At what point in the book do you usually have the title? Is it like toward the end of writing it, or?
No, I never have I almost never have the title, and then it goes in, and then they're like, if you have any thoughts. It's like, if I had a thought, I would have put something other than Trade 2022.
Gotcha. Okay.
So no thoughts. Occasionally, as I said, there's been some Daughters of the Bride. I knew the title and I fought for it. I can come up with the title later if I have to. I prefer not to. I like to you know, make them send me lists and say no. We work it. But yes, this one, once I lost the Bookstore on the Beach, we just had to look for something semi-close. Occasionally I fought for a title. I wanted to call a book The Return of Sophie Lane, and they wouldn't let me. And it's like, it needs to be The Return of Sophie Lane. And I just had a book called The Summer of Sunshine and Margot. It's like too many name books. It's like, oh my God. Sorry, my cat's meowing at me. He's like, hello, this is my lap time.
Well, luckily for Kat, it is about time that we say goodnight. So I'm going to ask a last question that I think many of us are wondering, and it's what is next for each of you?
Go ahead.
Oh, Susan, you'll probably have like 6 books out by the time. I'm so impressed at how productive and prolific you are. It's
well, amazing. It's because I don't go and learn about every flower, mushroom, and twig in the entire Eastern Europe forest.
Yes, fair. Yes, I do know far more than I will ever need to know my entire life.
You could survive in the wild in the winter.
I could write about surviving in the wild in the winter. I'm not sure if I could actually do it. But next up for me is a book coming out, I believe, in June of 2023 called The Paris Daughter. So it's a return to World War II France, and it also takes place in 1960 New York. And it's
I
about,
can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Weird. How about
No,
you,
no, tell us
Susan?
what is it about.
No. That's good. Paris, World War II Paris, 1960 New York. I'll leave it a mystery. How about you, Susan?
The next book for me is a Christmas book called Home Sweet Christmas, set in Wishing Tree, and a really cute cover with cookies. There are many cookies in the book. Many, many, many. In fact, there's Cookie Tuesday.
Nice.
And a chihuahua named Tinsel.
That's a great answer, because there were so many questions about whether or not there would be a Christmas book. So 2 answers for the price of 1. All right. So it is about the end of our evening together. So I'm just going to take this last moment to say a huge, huge thank you to audience members for joining us tonight. It has been so much fun to see you blowing up this chat and the questions. You've been an absolute delight. So for anyone who would like to get hands-on copies of the Boardwalk Bookshop, I'm going to go ahead and relink everything in chat. So the Boardwalk Bookshop, the Book of Last Names, and the link to the raffle are all going up in 3, 2, and 1. It's nice and big, so you can't miss it. So of course, all of you, let us know what you thought of this event, either in person or on social media. We always, always, always love to hear from you. Susan and Kristin, this has been...
Sorry, it was a cat.
It's funny.
The best part.
Cat tail.
So thank you so much for joining us and for being here. Susan's cat, also thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute delight. Does anyone have any last things they would like to say before we say goodnight?
I would like to say thank you to Kristin, and this is an amazing book, so I strongly encourage you to order it. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this is fabulous. Make sure to get your copy by ordering tonight from Third Place Books.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So with one more thank you, I think it's time to say good night. So shall we let the awkward waving commence?
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Susan. Thanks, Allie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Allie. I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds great.